And we're back in the room. It's me, Paul Ross, here on talkSPORT and talkRADIO. And you know what? We learned over the last day or so how things might work out when we return to cinemas to keep safe, to keep in our social bubbles, to order our popcorn and not get some kind of infection. But we don't need to worry about that because Van Connor's on hand, as he is each and every Friday, Mr. Media and Mr. Movies himself, to give us 3 recommendations of big Freeview films on the small screen, the cinema in your front room. And I bring 3 of mine as well. Something for the weekend from each of us. Good morning, Van, and how the devil are you, sir?
And good morning to you, Mr. I'm Mr. Movie, you're Mr. Matinee, I think, Mr. Ross. So I'm all good, thank you. I'm looking forward to discussing our cinematic Freeview offerings, as always.
Well, 3 very different films from me and from you. Mine are all sorts of westerns, but you're starting with a good sporting movie from tonight. BBC 2, 11:20. It's Borg versus McEnroe, the clash of the tennis titans.
Indeed. So, Borg versus McEnroe, or Borg McEnroe, has different titles. This is the story of the 1980 Wimbledon finals. This was intended to be Bjorn Borg's 5th and final win, and he sees him go against his big rival at the time, John McEnroe, the hot-headed American player, played here by Shia LaBeouf. He is played by Sverrir Gudnason, who I didn't really know from any other things, but I've seen since in that reboot of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. I think it was Girl and the Spiders, about 2 years ago. And yes, it's their big grudge match at Wimbledon. I've got a clip for you.
Here we go.
The only thing standing between Borg and that record is you. Mm-hmm. Well, here's what we're saying over in London, where you're hardly making any friends. John, I got to ask you, what is it that you've done to the Brits?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a different place, you know. It's different culture, and they have warm beer, and it's just a different thing.
Well, have you got a plan to get them to stop booing?
I mean, I plan to go in there and play my game. And if I beat Borg in the final, it's very hard to boo me if I'm number 1, so...
I think it's easy to forget now he comments on Wimbledon, commentates what a divisive figure he was at the time. Why this film, Van? You must love it.
I'm a big fan. It's because it came along at such a weird time, because our view of Shia LaBeouf was a very specific way 3 years ago, and he came out with this that just seemed like the perfect project for him. I mean, first of all, he kind of has the performance of John McEnroe down. I was astonished to learn that they weren't in any way interested in him for the role. He contacted them, and he had this belief that John McEnroe was this misunderstood figure. He heard they were making the film, and he was adamant that he had to portray this man. He had to bring him to life, and it's a wonderful performance. And then you get to Gudnason as well as Borg, and that as well has just this element of less an impersonation, but more just imbuing the physicality of that man. Not so much, like I say, the impersonation side of it, but just getting into the headspace and the psychology and the spirit of the man, rather than doing that, I'll just do the mannerisms, do the impersonation thing. It's a really great movie. I think it's really well made in that sort of, that way that only a Swedish filmmaker can really deliver, that very dramatic, very nuanced way.
Brilliant stuff as well. Brilliant scheduling by the BBC. It would have been Wimbledon week, of course. So that's 11:20 tonight, BBC 2. Slightly before that is my first pick on BBC 1. A great Western, a remake. It's got Christian Bale. It's got Russell Crowe. It's got Peter Fonda. It's from the year 2007. And it's the newer version of 3:10 to Yuma. Basically, a hideous, immoral bandit played by Russell Crowe is captured, has got to be transported. Nobody wants to go with him because they're terrified his murderous gang are going to kind of kill anybody guarding him. Christian Bale, who's a kind of crippled Civil War veteran, volunteers only for the money to keep him company, accompany him and keep him imprisoned on the way. It's a great movie, I think, this one. Very exciting, very dramatic, and we got the trailer.
Hands up.
22 robberies, over $400,000 in losses.
Y'all notice he didn't mention any of the lives I've taken.
We will have Ben Wade convicted and hanged, and we will pay to make it happen.
I'll come. So, boys, where are we headed?
Taking to the 3:10 to Yuma day after tomorrow.
Shouldn't have told him that. Relax, friend. Now, if we get separated, I know where to meet up.
He's a killer, Daniel.
And somehow I have the decency to bring him to justice.
It's based on a 1953 Elmore Leonard novel when he was writing westerns. The original is a cracker as well, from 1957 with Glenn Ford and Van Heflin. Different ending on that one, of course, without giving too much away.
Oh, yeah.
Did you enjoy this western, Van?
I'm a huge fan of this. This is James Mangold directing, and he recently did the Ford v Ferrari movie, or Le Mans 66.
He did Logan as well, didn't he, I think, and Walk the Line.
He did. Very much so. Like, he is, I think, he's attached to the upcoming 5th Indiana Jones movie as well, so I'm intrigued to see if that ever actually happens, what he could bring to it, because he's a fascinating director. But I'm very happy to say that I have a fact that I'm about westerns that I'm not sure whether or not you know.
Okay, now, as you know, Van, westerns are my favourite genre, so ask the question or give us the facts. I'm agog. I'm on the hooks of Tenta.
Okay, so first of all, I will tell you that it was originally Tom Cruise in line to play the Russell Crowe part in this.
Didn't know that.
Eric Barner in the Christian Bale role. That was originally the casting for this. But the fact that I was shocked by, and I have to dangle this in front of you, are you aware of the Cerro Pelon Ranch in Santa Fe?
I'm not, I'm afraid. Never heard of it before.
Right, this is the filming location. It's been used for dozens upon dozens of big budget productions.
Hang on, it's not the one where the Manson family hang out for a while, was it?
I believe it bears a resemblance.
Yeah, okay.
It's where they made Silverado, Wild Wild West. I think Thor was made there quite recently as well. Lonesome Dove. Right, they've been used for so many productions because of this movie and the investment that the production of this movie put into this ranch. They expanded their ranch by 75% capacity, and actually had to legally petition to keep that 75% rather than actually follow the rule that within 90 days they have to dismantle all the sets and sort of give it all back. They kept it. They kept 75% extra space entirely because of this film.
So it's the town that Russell Crowe and Christian Bale and James Mangold built. Let's go now to Saturday. Looking forward to hearing about this one. I would have gone for this, but you picked me at the post. It's ITV2 tomorrow evening, 10 minutes to 7, and it's Legend of Tarzan, the most recent Tarzan version, of course, of the great Edgar Rice Burroughs hero.
Very much so. This stars Alexander Skarsgård as John Clayton III as he starts out the story. This is one of those movies like Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, where rather than simply remake the property, what they've done is a sort of a reboot call. They've done a sequel that sort of retells the story but takes it in a new direction as well. So here we have Tarzan having acclimatized to living back in Britain with Jane, and he has to return to the Congo, and he's enlisted by a freed slave played by Samuel L. Jackson, who's like an American diplomat who enlists him on a mission to expose slavery in the Congo. And no sooner are they there than they fall into this devious plot by, I think his name's Leon Rom. He's played by Christoph Waltz. He's a Belgian military mastermind who is conspiring to deliver Tarzan to one of the local chieftains in exchange for diamond mining rights. I've got a clip for you.
Oh! Couldn't resist that.
Keep your voice low. That them?
You don't want to do that, George. Kill one and the rest won't stop until they've torn you to pieces.
So how you want to play this thing?
Their leader will come down and we'll fight. Whatever happens, do not interfere. Understand?
Mm-hmm.
Promise me.
See, this is a great film, beautifully shot as well, this film, and very exciting. And of course, it's set back, as you hinted at there, it's in kind of colonial Africa as well. So it's kind of relevant for what people are going through at the moment and the way we would rethink our attitude to the past and to our imperial past.
Very much so. I mean, originally this started out live as an attempt to create something akin to Pirates of the Caribbean. They were looking for something to, no pun intended, ape that kind of a tone. But it became a bit more serious as it went on. And it actually, for me, falls a lot closer to something like The Mask of Zorro, in the way that that's a sort of reboot sequel as well. Michael Phelps was originally intended to be the star of this by the producer, who then changed his mind when he saw Phelps host Saturday Night Live and realized that he couldn't host anything for toffee. And they went through a cast list for this like you wouldn't believe, because obviously the question becomes, who do you get to play Tarzan in the 21st century? They narrowed it down to Henry Cavill, Tom Hardy, and Charlie Hunnam. And for Jane, I think they had Emma Stone, Emma Watson, Lindsay Fonseca, and Lucy Boynton. So it was a very eclectic list all around. I mean, what they wound up with, I think, is very good. I think it's a very underrated film.
Okay, so that's ITV2 tomorrow night, 10 minutes to 7. Well, my first film was a Western, my last film was a Western. This is sort of a science fiction Western for the setup. It's one of those sequels that is even better than the original, and there aren't many of those. It's tomorrow night. It's on ITV4. It is, of course, the incomparable Mad Max 2. George Miller directs it, of course, the return of Mel Gibson. Do you know, here's my bit of trivia for you. You may know this. Mad Max, okay? 4 films about him. Do you know his surname, the character's surname?
Rockostansky.
He's got it right in one. Here we go. Mad Max 2. It's tomorrow night, ITV4.
This is what it has come to.
Look! Out there! They're coming back! Come on! Move it!
Here is where it shall be decided.
There it is. Greetings from the Humongous.
In a world without gas.
The Humongous rules the wasteland.
I'm gravely disappointed that you wish to take the gasoline out of the wasteland.
Defend the fuel.
We'll never walk away!
Give me the pump, the gasoline, the whole compound.
This is a land that prays for a hero.
Well, if anyone's gonna get in there, it's gonna be you.
This is Mad Max 2.
Just one man can make a difference, it says on the posters. I should have said, of course, it's set in a post-apocalyptic Australia where petrol is the only vital thing to keep him on the move. Start of a great franchise. This, and I think there might be a Mad Max 5 on the way. Is that right?
I think we're going for like a Furiosa prequel spin-off at this stage, but with George Miller, no one knows, because there was so many Mad Max related projects just rattling around in his head. I mean, for me, like you say, this bears similarities to the Western as well. But I think in the development of this, one of the things he really wanted to do, he wanted to imbue it with the influence of Kurosawa, was something he was very dead set on. I think with this one,
the real Seven Samurai vibe about it, and also, of course, I think after the first Mad Max, George Miller was offered the chance to direct the first Rambo film, First Blood. In the end, turned it down, thankfully, and made this instead. I'm going to continue now with my Sunday recommendation, another Western, underrated, I think, beautiful to look at, this film, with an amazing cast, Liam Neeson, Pierce Brosnan. It was released in 2006. It's called Seraphim Falls, and it's about a chase after the Civil War. Pierce Brosnan plays a Union soldier who's being pursued by Liam Neeson, who's obsessed with tracking him down and taking vengeance. You find out why in the course of the film. Very gritty, great movie this, very tense, and as I say, beautifully shot. It's on Sony Action, 9 o'clock Sunday night, and here's the trailer for Seraphim Falls.
We'll get your money when we find him, not before.
He's here. So watch yourselves.
Might have been a man rode through here.
Now where is he? A legendary soldier on the run for survival.
Mister, who the hell is this man? Must be part Indian or wolf.
I'm about to ask you to stop walking.
Let me be, boy. I told you to let me pass on. Two men bound by memories of a war, but divided by a massacre that won't be forgotten.
That is an absolutely cracking film in my book. It's got its kind of links, I think, to The Outlaw Josie Wales, maybe a similar kind of pursuit vengeance plot. I'm presuming you like this one. You've seen it again recently, haven't you, Van?
I have, of course. I actually made the effort to rewatch all of our films this week.
Whoa,
but I will say
that's the lockdown for you.
That is. You can tell we've just got too much time on our hands. But I was doing other work whilst we had these films on. But the thing about Seraphim Falls is it came along at a time like 310 to Yuma, when we had a lot of westerns coming out sort of under the radar, and these weren't cheap westerns. None of these films were cheap.
Because I love that film Appaloosa with Ed Harris and Viggo Mortensen was out around the same time, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
And Ray Winston in The Proposition, I think that was 2000. 2005 as well. So we have about a 3 or 4 year span where we've got a lot of really good, really gritty westerns that come out, and they're released kind of under the radar, and they do make money, but they're not hugely sort of remembered. And it's strange because none of them are especially bad.
Okay, that's 9 o'clock Sunday night, my final recommendation on Sony Action. It's from 2006 at Seraphim Falls. You've gone back slightly earlier, but a great film on Paramount, which we don't often get a mention of, and we should do again. It's Freeview, and it's FX. It spawned a sequel, but tell us about the original, Van.
So FX, which is a sort of loose remake of 3 Days of the Condor, from 75. This stars, I mean, this is the weirdest film when you start to break it down, because this was a star vehicle for Brian Brown, who I think most of us have sort of forgotten at this stage.
Because he was the co-star in Cocktail, wasn't he, with Tom Cruise?
He was, and this was a sort of solo effort. So this is a 1986 thriller in which he plays a movie special effects man named Rolly Tyler, who is tasked by the US Justice Department with staging the assassination of a mob informant, a witness, who they're going to put into witness protection, but they need to basically sell the idea that he is dead. And he is then framed for actually murdering this man and has to go on the run and defend himself using only the tactics of Hollywood special effects. Interesting stuff about this include the fact that the man he's accused of murdering is Jerry Orbach, you know, from US procedural dramas like Law and Order, but also the voice of Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast.
Be my guest, as I say. You've got a clip for us, I think.
I've got a clip for you just selling the wackiness of him using his movie trickery.
He's going to need every trick from every movie he's ever made.
Remember my particular genius.
Just to get even. And get out alive.
I'm in pursuit of a blue step van. Letters on the side. F as in Frank, X as in X-ray.
Remember Skidball Express?
I sure do.
Son of a gun, you faked this out.
But Rolly Tyler's most special effects are yet to come.
Forget why you hired me.
What next?
At the next corner, send Nellie in.
Oh my God, what?
Is he the weapon or the victim? Is it murder or is it FX?
It's from 1986. It is a cool cut. I love a film with a colon in the title. It was originally called, I think, FX: Murder by Illusion. Also stars the great, sadly late Brian Dennehy. Cracking choice, that, Van. So we've got 6 films for your consideration for the weekend. Our final one was there on Paramount, 9 o'clock Sunday night, FX: Murder by Illusion. And Van, remind us how we can hear you and Rebecca Perfect, our Monday regular. And also tell us about 2-minute movies.
So you can hear Rebecca and I, or Bex as I call it, on the off-screen show on Friday mornings, where we'll give you a full 7-day pick of Freeview movies. I do choose alternatives to the ones that I picked with you, obviously, Paul. So, you know, instead of FX...
We get the cream of the crop, though, don't we? We get the cream of the crop.
You get the cream of the crop. You get FX, and on off-screen we're doing Casper for Sunday, for instance, just to show you there's some variety in there, you know. So she gets to fawn over Devon Sauer. We get to sort of, you know, man gush over Rolly Tyler and Brian Brown and Brian Dennehy. But you can find it on podcast platforms on Friday mornings, and you can find me on 2-minute movies, in which I will give you succinct 120-second long, including a countdown timer, reviews of all the latest films, including this week when I'll be taking on Disney Plus's screening of Hamilton, the new Netflix movie Desperados, and Alex Pettyfer's directorial debut Backroads, which is out on Monday.
Van Connor there, Mr. 2-minute movies himself, talking to me, Paul Ross, right here on talkSPORT and talkRADIO. And that, friends, is a wrap.